already here. All right. Happy Wednesday. We made it, finally. The dentist this morning ran late. But we're doing well. So, reminder, there is no lab tonight. No labs generally the first week of class for reasons. I don't know what those reasons are, but we don't do them. I don't know. So you don't have to come back. So hopefully that's good. Next week, we don't have class on Labor Day, but then we'll be back for lab. Come on. So the first lab then is actually September 7th. No, that's the wrong class there. Oh my goodness. This one. I can make this work. There we go. Pretty much the same schedule though. All right. Yeah, 9/7. So no class Labor Day. So we're going to talk about Unix today. Talk about GitHub a little bit on Monday, and then the lecture will be on objects and classes. Most of it should be review based on what you did in 150. I'm hoping. We'll see if it's actually review or not. That's all of chapter 6, and then I'm going to show some extra stuff as well. So I'm assuming you've talked about objects and classes. I won't start super slow. We'll just kind of jump in and get moving on those and look at more of the fun stuff beyond that that we're going to look at, which is a lot of fun. And so the lab is actually going to be on GitHub and Unix here, because we're a little bit behind because we don't have the lab this week, but we'll get caught back up. So the lab on the 14th, then we can take care of objects, classes, exceptions, and pointers, kind of all in one. That'll work out pretty well. And then what we talk about that week will be in the lab that week. So a little funny for this first week or two, but then we'll get caught back up here as we go. All right. So we're going to try looking at Unix today, and there actually is a Unix server you can log into here. I don't actually know if it's on campus or if it's over at Ann Arbor or where it is, but it's somewhere. So I'm going to show you sort of what we're practicing in the lab here. I've talked with Mr. Dia a little bit and said he can, make it as interesting as he is up for. It's part of the fun of teaching a lab section there. But essentially, we're going to use this tool called Putty. So it is installed on the college computers. If you don't have a college computer, then you can just go download it yourself. Just search for Putty. The site looks really funny, but it's pretty decent here where you're going to end up to download Putty. You can get the installer, and we'll be good to go. If you're on Mac, you don't actually need Putty. So this is for Windows here because it will connect in with SSH, which is built right into Macs. So if you're in Mac land, it'll make life a little easier for you there. Don't have to have one extra tool. But when you launch out Putty, it's a way for us to connect to systems at the command line. And the command line looks really funny. It's going to be scary for a while. The more you practice it, the more familiar you'll be with it. You'll be comfortable. It's okay. There's a lot of handy shortcuts and things we can do at the command line that sometimes it's just a little slower to do with tools. So it pays to get familiar with it. Don't feel like you're going to have to be an expert at the end of this, but we'll just start. So we're going to connect to the U of M server here. So it's login.umd.umich.edu, and you'll actually be doing essentially this exercise in the lab. So I want to show you how some of this works, and then we'll take a look at Unix commands that are not part of the lab here, but to get you in. So we're going to use the SSH connection here to the server, and it should just connect and says, oh, I don't know who this is, because our computer by default doesn't trust Umich, which is fine. That's all right. So you can either connect once or you can accept it and always connect to it. No big deal. I'm just going to say accept because that's fine. And then you just use your login here like you would. When you get to the password screen, it doesn't look like anything's typing. It's just a security thing, but it does type for you. And then the two-factor authentication. So this is where I was having trouble last time, but I think it should be good. There we go. Now I got my duo push. Just had to try it a second time. And here we go. So I am now officially logged in to the Unix server. Let me see. I think I can make this a little bigger here. That's going to be a little small. Here. Come on, like font. There we go. Yeah, change my font size. Here we go. Let's do something a little larger. How about 20? Ooh, that's a little big. Is that okay? Not too terrible there. Hector, my friend, thank you so much for donating some bits. This is part of the fun of being here on Twitch. So all of this goes towards the Student Scholarship Fund over here at the College of Engineering and Computer Science, which is pretty fun. And then it's all recorded and you can all watch it later, which is also pretty handy. So I've got, I think I showed you in Canvas, a module going here with the lecture archive, if you ever want them. So you come over to modules. I'll just post the YouTube links as they go here, or you can just go right to my YouTube channel and find them there, whatever works well for you. But they're dated and titled. As we go, it'll start filling out. So they'll have them all here. And then I should mention the Discord server as well. This is my personal Discord server. I happen to think Discord's a pretty handy tool. So you're welcome to join there, talk with your classmates, ask questions, sort of general Q&A sort of things. It's fine. If you don't want to use it, that's okay. You don't have to. There also is an unofficial CIS server that some students started a couple years ago that's still relatively active, which is kind of fun. We've got some alumni in there now and some current students. So I'll add that link once I remember what it is later today. Let me give myself a note. CIS server to Canvas. I don't remember what that one is. I think I have an invite link handy somewhere. But that's also a fun resource. You can ask around. A lot of people have taken most of the CIS classes, so you can ask for advice, that sort of thing. The general theme that I've noticed so far is that students do better advising each other than our advising office does, which is really sad. I don't know why that is. I apologize. I have nothing to do with that. But, you know, you can get some good advice from your fellow classmates and upperclassmen. So hopefully it'll go well. All right, anyway, back to Unix. So I am logged in as myself. So if you're familiar with the Windows command prompt or PowerShell, Unix is a little different. We've got a whole different set of commands. And in our lab here, the last page of the lab here has a whole bunch of, hey, here's some handy Unix commands. There's a bunch of them here. You don't need to memorize any of this, right? Just, you can go look these things up here. But these are some common things that we're going to do. So the ls is for listing. Here it'll say what's around there, and you can give it a couple different options, like A for everything, L for long format, A and L for everything in long format. That's kind of fun. So I can say ls, and it says, hey, there's a bunch of stuff out here. I've been doing this for a little while now, so I've got a bunch of files. So there's things that are folders, there are things that are files. It's a little funky here. So if I do my ls and I want A for all, I see everything. Everything that starts with a dot here is generally private. Remember, we looked at on Monday in Windows, they're hidden unless you say I want to see hidden things. That is, that .get folder is hidden. Generally, we want to just leave that private stuff alone, right? It can usually just hang out and do what it's supposed to do. It's no big deal here. Or if I want to list everything in long form, here's the long form. You get a whole bunch of extra information here. Unix is really fun in that it has a built-in file permissions system, which is actually kind of nice. So this is most people don't use Unix anyway, but it's a little bit better about protecting itself. Windows has gotten a lot better as well, but it used to be if you could get on a Windows computer, you could touch any file you wanted, including the operating system files, which turns out is a bad thing. Who knew? So with the built-in permission system, you can see what your permissions are, and there's like 3 different sets of permissions, and I can never remember which one is which. There's groups, there's individuals, and then there's all users, or I forget. I just go Google it all the time. So there's like read and write access and other things here. That's what they look really long. They'll say who owns the document, right? And then eventually what is the document and the last modified date and time sort of things here. So some of these files haven't been touched in a while. It's a lot of extra info. Usually we don't need all of it here. If you want to go into one of the folders, right? There's no like double click. There's no folder I can click on to open. But if I want to go into my private folder or into my CIS 200 folder, I can't just click on it here. So you have to use a command. So the command is change directory. So directory is the fancy word for folder. I don't know why. But so CD for change directory. And if you start typing, I'm not a fan of doing more work than I need to. Like any good programmer, I'm lazy. Right? That's just kind of how it is. But I mean that in a nice way. Like we're lazy in that we don't want to do more work than we need to. So we're efficiently lazy. Right? That's sort of a trend here. So if I type CI and I start hitting tab, it's going to start auto-completing, saying, oh, do you want this thing or the next thing or the next thing or the next thing? And here's all my options. So I got CIS 200, 2000, CIS 200. So I can start doing 200. and it will complete it for me. So with all these big long file paths and things, I don't need to do a whole lot there with it. I can just type a couple letters and hit tab. And now it shows, hey, I'm logged in, and now I'm in the tilde character here. That's like the shift accent character right above tab that almost no one knows about. Means that's my home directory. That's my regular working directory here. So inside the CIS 200 folder, now I can list this one out, and there's nothing in it. It's empty. I probably cleared it out since last time. Sure, perfectly fine. So if I want to see some more information here, there's also another handy command, pwd, or print working directory, will show me, hey, this specifically is the full path to where I am. So this is my home, and E for, I don't even know what E is here. E-s is my user. So when you're logged in, it'll be whatever your user is, and then inside of this folder. So you can see what location you're currently in. Everything that you navigate in Unix in this command prompt is just done by typing. Think some really old-fashioned video games, some text-based adventure games, and maybe it'll be more exciting. So again, not a lot that I can do at the moment here, but if I want to start making a file or something, I can open up an editor. There's some built-in editors in Unix. One of the most terrible ones here is VI, or Vim. It's really awkward to use, but if you learn how to use it and you get good at it and familiar with it, you can be super fast. There's a guy on Twitch, I think he works for Amazon. I forget where he works now, or maybe he just quit Amazon. He loves VI and Vim and does all sorts of nonsense in there, and can type like 180 words a minute, whatever. This guy just flies, and it just boggles my mind. I'm just going to grab my mouse most of the time. But if you get familiar with it, some people like it, and some people will say this is like the best editor ever. Yeah, why not? There's all sorts of things. So inside of VI, it has its own set of stuff that happens. There's an insert mode and there's a command mode. So insert mode is like your regular text editor. You can start inserting text. Command mode means you can give it commands. Because it's all text-based, there's no menu to click on. There's no file to drop down. I can pick, hey, I want a new thing or anything like that. So you can give it specific commands in command mode to do something. Turns out quitting VI and actually closing it requires you to go to command mode. So there's a whole joke. I don't know if you've seen any of the memes around about how hard it is to quit VI and those other sorts of things. I usually try and post at least one or two every semester because they amuse me. I have a memes channel in my Discord. So if you have any good memes, safe for work memes, though, please drop them in the Discord. I love to see good memes and share those around. So to actually quit, you have to go to command mode and then give it :Q for Q for quit. The colon just because that's what VI does. When you're in command mode, you can type I to go back to insert mode. I can't make this stuff up, but people a lot smarter than I have wrote Vim and have been using Vim for a long time, so it works for somebody. If you're in insert mode, to get back to command mode, use the escape key. So escape to get to command mode, I from command mode to get to insert mode, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Sure, that's just kind of what it is. So when it launches here, it's starting command mode, so I need to insert. So I go I for insert mode, and now you see I'm in insert mode. Now you can do the terrible thing of start writing C++ code without an IDE. I don't recommend this, but you can, and it's a fun little thought exercise. So we can have things like our using namespace standard. We can have our include IO stream, and then we can have an int for main. And hopefully I can type well here, because otherwise this won't go very well for me. There's insert mode, and for now we can just like see out of a world and an end line and call that good. Now I have a file here, but there's no way to save it yet. Right? So to save things, you have to go back to command mode, and then you can use the :W to write the file for saving. Saving is writing the file to disk. You guys look super bored here. I apologize. It's a good exercise, I promise. Having a chance to have done it once, you can say you've done it once. And there's a lot of cool things we can do in Unix. Yeah.
I just came here from Henry Ford, and Henry Ford, I take a whole class for the entire semester.
The entire semester just in Unix? Was it like a Unix admin class?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you knew what you're getting into at least.
Yeah.
Okay. yeah, this is a one-time thing, the one time for the lab, and I promise I'll never ask you to use Unix again. You're welcome to if you're interested, and it's fun, and you can like run programs on the college server. So like the college app server will run it, and not your laptop. So you can do like some more intensive processing, and it can be useful as we get to bigger and bigger and bigger things that might be slow on your laptops. But it's a little awful. So that's okay. All right, so we have to go back to command mode. So escape gets me back to command mode. Notice the insert went away. And then I want :W to save the file. It says, oh, there's no file name. Uh-oh. We didn't tell it what to save the file as, right? I just opened VI and it has no idea what we're going to call it here. So I need to give it the name of the file that we're going to save it as. So let me go :W, and then let's try this as test.cpp. Swap file, sure, why not? Enter to continue. Okay, so now we wrote it here. Now I can quit. So :Q for quit. Now, if you just try and quit and the file's not saved, it might save it for you or it might give you a warning. If you really want to quit and you don't care about saving the file, it's quit ! Like you're yelling at the computer, yes, quit. Sure, that's how I was trying to remember that one here. So now if I go and do my ls here, I see there's a test CPP file. So if you want to see what's inside of a file, there's a command for that. I don't have to open it in the editor if I don't want to. Assuming it's a generally smallish file, there's a command called cat. And I don't know what that stands for actually, but I can cat the file. Again, I'm just going to type a couple letters and hit tab. Like T is the only T file out there, so test.cpp, and it will display the contents of the folder. We should come up with a good acronym for cat, so we can make up what it means. Or we can just Google it here. Linux or Unix. Probably Linux is the same thing. Concatenate. Okay, we're concatenating the file to the console, I guess. Sure. Like if you take a string and another string, you can concatenate them together. Sure. All right, so we have a file. So we have a CPP file, but we don't have executable code yet. Right? In Visual Studio, or if whatever your IDE is in Macland, you've got a little run button. And that run button will go and compile your code, give you an executable, right, that you can go and run. I don't think we actually looked at that executable last session. That was Monday. I still don't know what day it is. It's a little rough. We'll take a look at week 1 again real quick, and I'll show you what that looks like. So if I open up week 1, not in terminal here. Oh, in File Explorer, there we go. Inside of here, I get a, where's my, did I not have it? There it is, a week1.exe. EXEs are executable files. If this is a bunch of repeat from 150, yell at me. Like I'm happy to go a little faster here, but I don't want to make assumptions because I don't know what you did in 150. I've taught the class before, but everyone does it a little different. Some people used to make everyone do it in Notepad once, and that was awful. I like Visual Studio. Anyway, so we get an executable file that you can like double click on and run. Now, it ran and stopped and like closed right away. Remember, if it doesn't wait for input, the program finishes. So a lot of times what you might have done, if maybe, I guess, depending on who was showing you, you could add in a cin here and say, hey, get some input. And then the program will wait until it gets the input to satisfy that cin, and then it will close. Right now, like when we hit debug and run it, we get a nice little message here saying, hey, it's going to hold it open for us, right? To automatically close the console when debugging stops. Go to Tools, Options, Debugging, automatically close the console when debugging stops. Look at how like nicely named that option is. It's like exactly what we want it to have happen. Anyway, so it automatically pauses for us. If it's not pausing for us, we can go run that executable ourselves here. So that's when that open in terminal was handy. So this little pane down here is the terminal. This is essentially the Windows command line, kind of like what we have over here in the Unix land, but in Windows land, right? So some commands are similar. Change directory, still the same command, which is fun. So if you want to go up a directory, so right now I'm inside the week 1 folder, and I can, in Windows it's usually dir, but ls also works if you're in terminal or PowerShell, because they realized we might as well have similar commands to Mac or Unix, Linux. So this is the wrong folder. I need to be up one more directory. So to go up a directory, it's cd dot dot. So dot is generally for your current directory. Dot dot means go up one from current. So cd dot dot, now you see my path. That's a little small. Can I zoom? I can't zoom that. How do I change my font size? Not right click. Okay. I'll have to find it later. I'm sorry, it's a little small there. But now in here, I can see I've got my my x64 folder. X64. Inside of here, I've got my debug folder. Inside of here, I have week 1. So I can run the week 1 executable here. Now we get the output, and my window doesn't close because I've told it to stay open. Like I'm at the terminal, it's not going to close until I hit the little X button and close the terminal down. That was a fun sidebar. But you get an executable. So we don't have an executable to run. That was that whole thing. So when we hit debug, it builds the executable for us in Visual Studio and runs it because it's like that's what you want to do. It's really handy. So to go and build these things yourself in Unix, we have to go and tell it we want to go do these things. So it is G++. I don't know why it's a G, but that will compile a given CPP file. And then you can tell it with this -O what you want the executable to be named. Otherwise, it's a.out. It's a little bit funny here, but sure, we can have it be a.out, or we can make it something nice if we want. So from here, then I can say I want my G++. I want to give it my, what do we call it, test.cpp. Again, I'm hitting tab for it to autocomplete. And then we can say -O. I want to give it a name. How about test.exe? And now when I list here, I have a test.exe executable that I can run. So we've just had the Unix server compile this C++ code. Again, not a very interesting program, but just a quick little example. So I can run my test, oops, oh my goodness, test.exe. Come on, where's my autocomplete? That's not cooperating. Test.exe. Test.exe. Oh, dot test.exe. No, it's not executing. Why is it not executing? Now I'm scratching my head. Thought that would have worked. Test.exe. Not the command. Run the file. Why can't we execute? We have the file, right? All right, now I'm a little confused. Make sure we did all the steps. I skipped all the directions here, but it should have worked. TPP. The dot slash. Test. Oh, okay. The slash is important, apparently. This is why I hate Unix. Anyway, so dot slash, and then my executable, and it will run the executable that we wrote, which prints out hello world. Again, not very exciting. But if we wanted, we could go back to VI. So if you want to open a particular file in VI, you give it VI and then the file name. So here's our test.cpp. It'll open up our test CPP. There's a swap file already. I don't think we care about the swap file. Newer than the swap file. Yeah, that's fine. Let's delete the swap file. Okay, sure. Then we can go down in here. So I'm still in command mode. So if I start typing, I went to insert mode. Sometimes it's smart enough. Other times you'll get garbage. But notice my A didn't show up, just the SDF. A little funky here. But we can say, hey, how about hello world from Unix? Now, to save it, right, there's no Control-S save. Right, we have to go back to command mode. And then we have to do :W for writing the file. That'll update the file. And then we can :Q to quit. And then we can run that GPP command again. Or the up arrow will get the last command that you entered. So it's going to keep a buffer of those commands. So if I can just start hitting up, eventually I'll get back to that GPP command right here. So I don't have to type it again. I don't like typing things I don't need to. I don't like doing a lot of work I don't need to do. So I'll run GPP again, and then I'll go back up and I want to run my test file, and I want to get the latest and greatest version that we compiled, Hello World from Unix. You guys don't look impressed. It took like 20 minutes to get a Hello World up and running in Unix land. No? It's not good? Okay. You'll have the fun of it doing yourself next week. So Mr. Dia can help you. Should be a lot of fun. So we're going to do the Unix lab and the GitHub lab that we looked at last week, like where you go get the repository, clone the repository, make your program. So if you're using a Mac, it's just making whatever project. What do you guys usually use in Mac? What's the IDE? Forget the name of it. What is it when you are writing C++ in? No, on Mac. Okay. IDE on Mac. We'll Google it here. Sea Lion, I know some people use. I thought there's another one. Xcode. That's the name I was looking for. Xcode. Do you guys use Xcode on Mac? Okay. If you don't know, then just use the college computer or Windows. It's usually a little easier. But yeah, you're welcome to do it yourself. Xcode, I think, will get the job done. If you are interested in algorithms and solving problems quickly and what's known as competitive programming, which I didn't know was a thing until, relatively recently in my life. People are big fans of Sea Lion in competitive programming. There's a whole competition you can go to. That's the ICPC competition, ICPC 2022. It's IEEE and ACM are both some really old organizations for computers. So IEEE and ACM, American Association for Computing Machinery, which is weird that they're like software, even though it says machinery, but that's okay. They've been around that long. So ICPC is that the right link for it? Must be the right link for it. The competition that happens. So there's regional competitions, and winners of regional competitions can move on to, I think, right to nationals. I forget how it all works. I was the coach for our team before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and no one really wanted to do anything. It's like a virtual competition. It was not really as interesting, but it was a lot of fun. So you can take a look. So you essentially have to solve problems using relatively well-known algorithms, typically stuff you'll learn in 350 or 3501 if you're continuing on those sorts of algorithms. It's a lot of fun. Sea Lion, that's where I got to here. I think I need some more coffee. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I got my internet back last night, though. I was super excited at home. Thankfully, I didn't lose power, but the internet was down for like 24 hours, and my kids hated it. Like, there's nothing to do. Like, we don't have a DVD player. Everything streams, and if there's no internet, you can't stream things. The devices don't work. The Echo Dots don't work. I don't know. Welcome to the 90s, kids. So, although I did have internet in the later 90s, so I'm old. Sorry. Sometimes I think I'm still a young person. Yeah, Elysian, the first lab is Unix and GitHub. So we'll do the Unix exercise here, as well as the GitHub stuff. So some other fun commands then. Other things we're going to look at. mkdir, or make directory, will make a folder for you in Unix land. PDW, print working directory, ls for list, cat to display the contents, mv for move, and cp for copy. Yeah. Not yet. So the lab section, I believe, is a different Canvas site for you folks. So Mr. Dia was assigned on Friday, and I don't know if he was actually added to Canvas yet, but I'm not in your lab Canvas section. I'm only in the lecture Canvas section, which is a little awkward because now we're going to have two, but it will make it work somehow, I promise. So I think everything will happen in the lab section because Mr. Dia has access to actually evaluate stuff there and enter grades, where he doesn't have access to our lecture section for reasons. I'm sorry, I don't really know why. So it will get added before your lab on a week from today. So not tonight, right? No lab first week. A week from tonight, when you have your first lab, we'll have this document, and he's going to update it here. This has like I didn't steal it, but I was given this by Dr. Ellenbogen back the first time I taught CIS 200 when he was the course coordinator and all sorts of fun stuff. So we've essentially been recycling it. I mean, I'm sure he was recycling it for years before then too, but I've been recycling it since fall of 2016, the very first time I tried it and realized how horrible Unix was. I'm mostly jesting here. Like, it's not a bad platform, it's just a different thing. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's horrible, but I just like to make jokes about it because I like Windows. All right. So moving and copying files. Sorry, did that answer your question? Yeah. So we will write a C++ program by hand in VI, compile it, and run it to say you've done it. You'll get essentially the same output, but it's much harder because it's Unix. So it might make you appreciate Visual Studio a little more, maybe. Yeah.
Two questions. So, in a professional setting, why would Vim be preferred? So, what's the advantage? Is it more efficient or?
So let me repeat your question so it goes on the recording. So in a professional setting, why might we like Vim?
Yeah.
Not everything has Windows. So depending on what you get into programming, especially like small embedded systems, they might run some sort of a Unix operating system where you don't have any of these tools. So if you have to get onto that system and run code or debug code, or even like write code for some reason remotely on it, that's the only tool you have. So sometimes it's like the lowest common denominator, that like everything will at least have VI, probably, if it's some sort of Unix-based system. So it's worth knowing that you can do these things even if they are slow and painful and awkward the very first time. I mean, the first time we used Visual Studio was probably a little slow and awkward and painful too, because like I've got 15 different windows open here and I don't know what's happening in any tab, right? It just, as the more you work with it, the more comfortable you'll be in it. Generally, as developers, we like tools that make us more productive because then we can get more work done faster, which is generally a good thing. And it turns out, depending on your organization and different companies treat people differently, but usually, like as a software engineer, you'll be a salaried employee and not an hourly employee. As a salaried employee, they say, "Here's your work, go do it." When your work is done, you're done. Right? There's no clock to punch. You don't have to say, okay, I got to my desk at 9 a.m. I'm clocking out at 5 p.m. Again, depends on your organization. Software tends to be a little bit more generous on moving that direction. That here's the work to do. You figure out how to get it done, right? And if it's really slow because you're using slow tools, it takes you a longer time. If you're using faster tools, shortcuts, and you're more productive, it takes you less time. That being said, if you have more free time, you can take on more work, which can make you look good and open up avenues for advancement and all sorts of things. And that's a whole other social discussion on whether or not we should be asking people to take on more things. And apparently there's a new term called quiet quitting, which super confuses me because it's not quitting. It's just working during your hours and not answering emails at night. I don't know why that's known as quitting. And then I feel old like a boomer. I'm not. I'm still a millennial. I don't know. A solid millennial here. I'm sorry, you had two questions. Thank you. Yeah, just shout at me.
So the follow-up question.
Yeah.
And what settings are Unix more advantageous to Windows?
So in what settings is Unix more advantageous than Windows? So not every system can run Windows. Not every system has even a screen, right? So a lot of devices they're just running some software somewhere. So we can connect to them remotely on some sort of Unix or Linux-based system and give them commands where there's no screen to even click on at all. So depending on what sort of software you're writing and where it's being deployed and where it's being run, you'll have different operating systems. So that's one of the reasons we talk about Unix, because it's very common for small embedded systems. Windows is actually really heavy. Like, it takes a lot of resources to run Windows in terms of systems. So it's popular because it's easy to use and very user-friendly. But if the only thing we care about is I just need to run some code on the device, probably don't need to run Windows there. We just need some operating system that can run our code. And you will have the pleasure at some point of taking an operating systems class to make you appreciate how amazing operating systems are. Did you have another question? I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Please just shout at me. Like, that's all it takes. I'm happy to go and answer questions because we're all over the place today. Unix is a little rough, but you know, you do it a couple times and eventually you get used to it. If the commands don't work, you just go and look up your sources again. You have a question?
Can you connect to Unix without Putty, like the only one connect?
So Putty is a very common free tool that you can use on Windows. You can, so it's actually an SSH connection, which is a secure shell. Is it just secure shell? I forget what it means. That we're using. So Putty's just a wrapper around SSH for us, and it has a bunch of other cool things you can do. This is just the one tool. It's already loaded on the college computers that we use because it's easy and free. Yeah, there's a lot of different tools you can use though. So anything that can SSH, you can connect it. Yeah. Okay. So the move and copy commands. MV for move, CP for copy. I really wish they would have just typed out the whole command, right? MOVE and COPY. Like they saved 2 letters here, but sure. These have been around long enough when like saving 2 letters actually saved a decent amount of space in the overall like how much your computer could store and handle sort of thing. And back when screens were only this wide and that sort of nonsense. So moving can be used to move a file and or rename the file. So moving a file to a new name is renaming it. Moving a file to another directory is just moving it, right? So if you're not changing the folder that it's in, the directory that it's in, you're just renaming it, right? Or you can do both at the same time, move it to another folder and rename it all at once. Copy is copying a file, right? You can either give it a new name or a new path location, those sorts of things. And then RM for remove, there is no delete, it's remove in Unix land. So RM for remove, give it the name of the file, it will delete it. To delete a directory, though, you can't RM a directory. You have to RMDIR to remove the directory. This is to make sure we don't blow up a folder by mistake, which is actually pretty nice. Like if you delete a folder, everything inside that folder is gone. So it's kind of a nice little safety thing. Like, yes, I really want to delete a folder. Not, oh, and we try and delete a file and I got the name wrong because I typoed it, wasn't paying attention, and now everything's gone. There's no recycling bin either in Unix. Like when you delete it, it's gone. So do be a little careful there. There's also a funny joke. What's it? The Unix move all files. If someone ever tells you to run, what is it here? Oh, come on. Where's the joke? Yeah, RM-RF star. It's a bad thing. This is removing and then recursively finding all the files in everything everywhere. It's essentially erased your computer. Don't run that command, okay? Thankfully, you only have access to your files, so it'll just delete all of your stuff. You're not going to actually screw up the Unix server. But if you're logged in as an admin and you run this in the wrong place, you've done a bad thing. You're having a really bad day. Now we got to go test our backups. So, and it's a good, fair learning exercise. I don't recommend it, but some people will say, hey, go run this command, and then, oh crap, you lost everything. Now go recreate it all, like back from scratch at your lab. Like, hey, maybe you don't just run commands that you don't know what they mean. Which is probably a good thing. Don't just like Google something and run it and be like, I hope this works. You probably want to know what it's supposed to be doing first. It's a good safety tool. So there's all sorts of memes with this RF stuff out there. Yeah.
Right, so would it delete like every file on the computer, including like Windows itself?
So the -R here means recursive. So it will start in the folder you're in and then delete everything in that folder and go to all the subfolders, delete everything in those folders, go to the next subfolders. So if you're in your root, like right at your C drive, it'll delete everything. If you're just in your like My Documents folder, it just deletes My Documents and everything. So as long as you're not at like the C drive, you're okay, right? I mean, you still lost everything in the folder you're in, but you're not going to like break the computer. Yeah. So that's a fun one. People like to do mean things sometimes. You know, don't like my server's down. Something bad happened after that. Oh, I hope this was a joke. That's really sad. Yeah. Okay. to move or copy things, right? We have this test CPP file. If I want to name it something better, right, I would use my move command. I'm not moving it anywhere, but I'm going to rename it with move. So I'm going to take test CPP and I want to call it hello world unix.cpp. So now if I do my list here, I have a hello world Unix CPP file. So the original's gone and it just renamed it. Right? Didn't really move it anywhere, but again, it's a move and or rename option here. If I want to make a copy of it here, well, let me make a folder like mkdir for backup. I probably should have said backup, mkdir backup. There we go. And we'll remove that back folder. So now there's a folder backup. There's a hello world Unix CPP file. There's my test executable. So if I want to make a copy of it to put in my backup here, because sometimes I run delete commands without Googling them and understanding what they do, right? Not that has ever happened to me before. It happened once in school. I'm not salty at all. So we'll make a copy. So CP for copy. I want my hello world Unix. Again, type a couple letters and hit tab. And I want to copy it to the backup folder / there's hello world unix.cpp. LS doesn't look like anything's different, but I can go into my backup directory. So cd backup. And when I list here, I have a hello world Unix CPP file. So I made the copy of it. Okay. To go back up, again, cd ... will take you up a directory. If you're not sure, right, this is the current path I was in. Now I'm not in the backup folder. And then let's remove that test.exe because that's not named very well. And let's try that again. So do our GPP for compiling. Here we want to compile our hello world Unix CPP file. And let's call it, for an output, hello world Unix .exe. Now we have a hello world Unix exe. So now I can run that, right, by / here, why not, hello world Unix, and we get hello world from Unix. Is that a question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we did that mv hello world unix.exe and then back without moving back.
So I could move my exe into the backup folder? Yeah, definitely. So we could move the hello world unix.exe to my backup folder, hello world unix.exe. And when I list, now the executable is gone. If I go into my backup directory here and list again, I have the executable here. We can run, just hit up a couple times to get that command back, and let's type it again, and we can run our executable. So what's cool, right, this executable has been compiled in Linux. We can run it in Linux, or Unix, sorry. They look the same. I get confused easy. Okay. Now, the other fun thing you'll see if you're logged into the college computers is you all have an H drive, your home drive, where you can keep some files around. You can access it in Windows. Your home drive is actually what we're accessing here when we log in via SSH. So we can see all that same stuff. So if I go back a directory, again here, to where I was here, I have this private folder. If you looked at your H drive, you notice you have like a private and a public folder. So I go into the private folder, private. Then I have that My Documents folder and everything else inside of there. So you can actually get your stuff from Windows here, which is fun. So it's a little easier to do that sort of thing. And then the last little bit we're going to do in the lab portion I want to show you about here is using another tool. Where is it in here? Pilot. Working directory. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. So this tool called WinSCP, and just we use it because it's a free tool. It's for file transfers. So you can connect from Windows into Unix and have a nice little drag and drop UI that we can transfer files from. Or like if we didn't have that H drive being connected there, I could take a file on my Windows device, build it in Visual Studio, transfer over to Unix if I wanted to, and run it in Unix. So that one, you have it installed. It's not going to be too bad at all. You just go and connect in and drag and drop the files over. I think we'll be okay. I don't think we need to show that one. We'll do that one in the lab, no problem. So that's the other tool you're going to use. So we'll use Putty to do SSH on Windows to connect to the Unix server. We'll use WinSCP to transfer files from Windows to Unix, or vice versa, right? We could go compile and run stuff on Unix, transfer the results back to Windows, right? You've got some sort of long-running process that's going to crunch a bunch of data, make the college computer do it, and then just take the results over, that sort of thing, transfer back and forth. And then we'll do the GitHub exercise as well, where you go get that first lab directory, right? Make the folder, copy the folder down to your computer, put your program in it, compile it, make sure it runs, make sure GitHub can see the changes, commit and push the changes. It's a bunch of steps, I promise. I know it sounds crazy. We're going to do it for every single lab and every single project. So by the time you're done with CIS 200, you'll have done it 16 times, I think. That sounds about right, somewhere around 16 times, and you'll feel decent about it. So, it'll take a little while to practice. That's okay. I've been doing this sort of stuff for 15 plus years. So don't feel like it has to happen as fast as I show you, right? That's okay, right? It's going to take some time to do it. So you'll get there eventually. All right, I think we're pretty good for today then. Let me double check. I think that's all we had on tap. Oh, and we're done. I think it's just quit. Nope. Let me just close it. I'll just close it. Why not? Yep. So GitHub and Unix. All right. So we took care of all of those. Again, no class Monday, no lab tonight. Go have a fun Labor Day. Hopefully there's a parade somewhere, something you can do. I know there's one in Ann Arbor, I want to say. They keep reminding me here I should go to this Labor Day event for the labor union, but I haven't gone. We'll come back with Zybooks Chapter 6. If you haven't got the Zybooks yet, I'd recommend you get it. It's good practice being able to type through all the exercises. If you have last semester's PDF, you are probably okay with that if you like reading PDFs, if you printed every single chapter. Now, the numbers are different, though. What's fun about Zybooks is I can reorder the chapter numbers. So I reordered them, so I'm not here chapter 7, chapter 12, chapter 2, back around. So the chapter numbers might be different, but the topics should be the same. So if you don't get the book because you have last semester's PDF, great. Because I'm not checking if you're actually doing the exercises. There's no points for doing the exercises. That's on you to practice these sorts of things. And then we'll have quizzes as well. So I'll post a quiz a little bit later today. We'll be doing a week or so. Usually they're due a week later by 11:59 p.m. So I have one last chance to remind you folks, and we'll go from there. We'll try and do about one quiz a week. Okay. Sorry, you were about ready to go. You got your bags, and I tricked you. I'm sorry. I think we're good now. So thanks so much. I will see you next Wednesday.